Hello, everybody. We're back again. Another episode of Form VOLTRON. I got on my threads here. I got the black VOLTRON lion. If you can see that logo on the camera. Bro, you didn't notice that, did you? Isn't that rad? Courtesy of Alexandria, who's always looking out for the cosmetics on the show, making sure we look good. So big thanks to her for that. And I know she, as well as the rest of the audience, will be excited today for another, I hope, will be impactful, and I say this in a positive way, devastating episode. We have another guest on here today, and I'm going to introduce her. Her name's Sarah Eubanks, and the reason we're having her on today, it's more continuing with trying to formulate this argument I've had, this angle that I've forever been defending about abortion. What's unique about Sarah is she, and this is something a lot of people are not exposed to or even get to talk to somebody like her. This is very unique, even for me, who's been in this kind of activist role for all these years. Sarah used to work at an abortion clinic, and she's going to tell us more about that, but she was also featured in the film She Was Stronger, a documentary which you can see on YouTube for free, but you also, I'm sure there are other places where it's available. If you look up the organization, And Then There Were None, which is run by Abby Johnson. And it's an organization that is, it helps people that worked in this industry to get out and also inspire other people who maybe are conflicted, who work at clinics and don't know if they want to do it anymore. It helps them to get out of that industry. And some of them, if you look at them online, they now speak out and try to, I don't know, I guess you would say expose the abortion industry, which is what we want to do today. So, Sarah, I thank all my guests for coming on, but this is huge I think we're going to make a big impact today. Thank you very much for being here. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm so excited to be here.
Great.
And I have to say, I just absolutely love your accent.
Thank you.
So you keep talking and I'm just going to jump in somewhere.
Right. We love yours too, Sarah. And just so you know, as somebody who has been all over the country, I've been to Alabama a few times.
Right on.
I knew at some point you were going to comment on the accent because people can't resist it from far away. So,
yeah.
And Sarah, I take requests. So if there's anything you want me to say, the alphabet or anything, I'll do it for you. People,
there you go.
People
there you
come
go.
up
just,
to me
just
with
wedding
phrases.
vows, Dan.
Yeah.
Just wedding vows. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, but Sarah, what I want to do first is what I want to ask you about. Like I said, I watched the documentary 7 or 8 times at this point, like in preparation. But as we talked about before we started, I talked to you a little bit. While I say most people in the pro-life movement at this point, they know about Abby Johnson. They know what she does. As I told you, there's a lot of people in this audience who probably haven't seen the film or don't want to see it or would be resistant to seeing it. So I do got to give, if you can, just give a little bit of background, and we are going to get more into it and pick it apart.
Yeah.
But anything you want to say, whatever you bring up, we're probably going to talk about anyway, but anything you want to say about, where you're from, before we get into this conversation, anything you'd like people to know about you, that would be great just to start us off.
Yeah, I'm born and raised in Mobile, Alabama, and I was raised into a good old Southern Baptist family and went to church and even been to Israel twice and seen where Jesus walked. And when I got in my teens, actually when I was 12, I started smoking pot.
Okay.
And drinking. And then when I got to be 15, a little bit heavier drugs and stuff.
Right.
I was very much into heavy metal back in the day.
Okay.
And now, that I'm older, I'm a little more laid back in my music choices.
Yeah, we never grew up.
And that's okay. Don't. It's just my brain doesn't stop. So now I need music to chill me out.
Right.
For that
I gotcha. Great.
But I had my own abortion at 19.
Right.
And I went to nursing school, and that's when I was working at a hotel.
Yeah.
And the hours just weren't really good with school. So I quit the hotel and I went over to the clinic.
Right.
Where I had my abortion, got hired on the spot, started that week, started working in the abortion clinic. And, I know we'll get into details with
Right.
that. And I mean, it was intense. I worked there for 3.5 years and
Right.
totally radical pro-choice
Right.
person. And
Right.
I was the one that would go to parties and pass out colored condoms. And,
Right.
it was like, passing the joint and passing out a colored condoms at the same time.
Right. Sarah, here's it's fun. I feel this has happened with all the guests. You're kind of, what you're saying is already kind of a really good backdrop for like the questions I was going to ask. Here's my first thing. And a lot of this stuff's a matter of opinion, I guess. And I don't know how you take it. A lot of this is my opinion, but you may have a different take on it. Do you feel, I've noticed a theme over the years that not even necessarily people that have had abortions or worked at an abortion clinic, but just people that feel very strongly that just defend the act of abortion. Mm-hmm. I've noticed, now this doesn't go for everybody, obviously. There are religious people that have no issue with abortion. I mean, I'm not trying to put everybody in one category, but it does seem that the public relations arm of the abortion industry, if that's what you want to call it, I feel like, I don't know if, I feel like I hate to use the word prey, but there's something going there where they know how to hook in people that maybe had problems growing up, that maybe have been through people are emotional, and the industry knows how to play on those emotions. So if you have a person that maybe had been in a situation where maybe they were raped, or maybe they had an abortion, or whatever it is, something happened to their friend, or they maybe someone who voted for a Republican. It could be as simple as someone who voted for a Republican was nasty to them. It could be anything. The abortion industry kind of knows how to bring those people in. Like, this is a sympathetic thing we're doing. This is good for women. We're helping them. And look at all this damage done to you and to the world. This is why we need. Have you ever made that connection? Do you think that's there, or am I being over dramatic by saying they do exploit that talking point?
Well, I don't think it's being over dramatic. And okay. I'm with you. I don't like labels. I don't really like categories,
Right.
But I do feel like that. Like when I went in and started working at the clinic, I did it to help women.
Right.
Because I had an abortion, Dan, so it had to be right.
Right.
Because I wouldn't have made a mistake. I wouldn't have done something wrong. Right.
We're going. You're correcting the wrong. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, if I did it, then I'm going to help other women do it too.
Right.
And I don't care what your reason is. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be the one to turn on the suction machine and hand the doctor the instruments and stuff and tell you, it's okay, boo, you're doing the right thing.
Right.
Because I would tell everybody that I had hesitant women coming in because I worked in the procedure room. So I was one of the last people you saw.
Right.
And I'd have women coming in there going, you know what? I think I'm going to just think about this or whatever. And I'm like, what is there to think about?
Right.
Because when you leave, the reason you came in here is still out there.
Right. Yeah.
So you did it because you ain't in love with the baby's daddy.
Right.
Well, you're still not going to be in love with him in 5 minutes.
Right.
Just go ahead, you're up on the table. Let's do it and be done with.
Right.
So it's like there's a way, because one thing that I've noticed is that, abortion is so openly accepted.
Yes, I want to talk to you about that too. Go ahead.
It's like it's the cool thing to do.
Yeah.
And being pro-life is uncool, so to speak.
Yeah.
And that's another thing to where I just don't like those categories. I don't like those labels.
Right.
Yeah. But I've seen that in a lot of like the cooler kids.
Right.
And the ones that do have all of the fun outfits and have all the cool piercings and all the cool hair color. And they're the ones holding up the signs and being pro-choice and fighting for that.
Right.
And then you've got the ones like me that, don't dye their hair anymore and wear turtlenecks. And you know what I mean?
Right.
It's have that conservative look or whatever. But it's like, but there's so many things that the abortion industry can play upon people's emotions with things.
Right.
And they're going to feed you lies. They're going to tell you what you want to hear, but they're not going to tell you the truth.
Right. You know what else too, Sarah? It's funny you said that, is that I can't stand that term pro-choice even. I don't like pro-life and pro-choice, either one, because I say, like, I don't know, anti-abortion and abortion rights advocates. I try to come up with my own names, but unfortunately,
It creates a polarity. Like
Yeah.
everybody's got to be on one team or the other.
right. And
Right.
the other problem is too, Sarah, is that, see, Sarah, I'll tell you this. I think I always respect my opposition. I think the pro, whatever you want to call it, let's call it pro-choice, whatever. You got to hand it to them. They're brilliant. They got millions of women to turn against their instincts. I mean, you gotta, I don't like it, but I gotta respect what they've, and another brilliant thing they've done is by calling it pro-choice. That puts someone like me on the spot. Because if I'm anti-choice, they don't clarify that I'm specifically talking about abortion. They can, by just that vague choice, now I'm telling a girl what color shoes to wear, what time she has to be in. It just makes me out to be this monster, and that was never my intention. You know what I mean? And
but
so
also, you know, on the same token, though, you'll also have that side. I mean, we're just going to go for the case study of this. We'll say pro-choice.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Whenever a woman does decide to have the baby, they're not always supportive of that.
Right. Right.
So it's also like you're negating that choice that mother made.
Right.
Like right now, I have a 16-year-old that's at the hospital right now being induced that she's going to be having a baby in a few hours.
Oh, are we keeping you from that? Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And originally she was abortion minded.
Okay.
And now she's, you know, of course she's decided to have the baby.
Okay.
And there's people that I've put it on Facebook asking for donations, asking for help, because she's a 16-year-old kid that is going to need a lot of things, and including resources and education and parenting classes and stuff. But there's also people that are like, well, why didn't she just have the abortion? She wanted to do that to begin with. It's like, but she had that choice. So here we go with that word that this is a choice she made, so that you should respect that as much as you would have respected her having the abortion. And don't turn your back on her now because what she chose was different than what you would have chosen.
Right. And so I just want to remind you in the audience again, we are going to get into your personal story. Some of these side conversations I think are very important to set this up. The other thing too is, I guess this is kind of related to that first question. Something that I think both sides of the aisle have been slow to figure this out, what I'm about to say. I have always said, even pro-life people, I think, took a long time to figure this out. What the film that you were in does so beautifully is it sets up the story. It shows how there was a backstory before you and the other two women worked at the clinic. And that's something that pro-life people don't understand, is that I think abortion, they make it just about whether it's a life or not a life or whatever. I think it's a branch of a much, much bigger problem. People are sleeping around, making babies, and then they, I didn't really want it in the first place. I never intended to get pregnant. And then there's the abortion clinic as the Band-Aid. And I blame men a lot for that too. I think men get off the hook. There are a lot of men that just go on these rampages, sleeping around, and they don't intend to have the baby either. So And I think that, like, even feminists, this argument I get with them all the time, and liberal people and pro-choice people, I would tell them, listen, if you care about women, don't you understand that the abortion industry and what they do, they're attacking a branch of a bigger problem of how women are treated, how sex is treated, what we teach children. Again, have you ever reflected, have you ever made that connection yourself that there is a bigger societal problem here? And this is one piece of it.
Yeah, I have. I mean, it's well, first of all, it's easy for men to go sleep around because they're not called. Can I speak freely?
Yes, say whatever you want.
Okay. The men aren't called whores and sluts.
Right.
So men, they can go there. They're going to be the player. They can go do all of this stuff. But it's the girl that sleeps around with the same number of men. She gets called these names. And then she's the one that ends up pregnant. And she's like, okay, I'm pregnant. Now what do I do? It's like, all I wanted to do was just go get laid. I just wanted to have sex. I just wanted to go have fun. And now I'm pregnant. And the easy solution is to go have an abortion. And then it's like a chapter you can close. But what they don't realize is the damage, mentally, physical, just everything that goes along with that. And the men need to take repercussions with this. And we need to get back to the basics of celibacy, saving yourself, you know,
Right,
the old
right.
fashioned stuff. The
Right,
old fashioned
right,
stuff
right.
really is cool,
Yeah,
you
right,
know,
right.
because I mean, it's just be intimate with that one person,
Right,
with that,
exactly.
with your
Right,
husband, with your wife, and get wild and
right,
have
right,
fun with them,
right, right. Yeah,
you
and that,
know, but it's like, yeah, and there's so many diseases out there, and then
right.
there's so much trauma mentally too that comes along with
And
all of that.
Sarah, I even remember, even when I was in high school, I'm still from that era where, I remember at the very least, I went to a Catholic high school, believe it or not. And even then there was even if, this is the way I put it to people, I remember couples back then that at the very least, even if they weren't married, they knew they were going to get married, and they eventually did, if nothing else. And I'm not condoning that either. I'm not saying high school kids should be having sex or anything like that. But what I'm saying is just a reflection on the times. There was still some sense of like, I even say too, like, not that I was a big fan of Bill Clinton, but during the Clinton years, I feel like we did kind of reach this happy medium where there was still some responsibility. You could say you were against abortion and at least have a debate about it with someone jumping down your throat. And then from there, I don't know if that was a precursor to whatever, but now it's just like you said, it's people do it like it's nothing, like you said in the film.
Mm-hmm.
And I've noticed that up here too. Once it becomes part of the culture, what's the difference between getting an abortion and tying your shoe at that point? If people,
Right.
especially with the abortion pill now, I mean, and that's, with the abortion pill, that's my issue. People can debate all day long. Oh, well, it was just a tiny little microscopic clump of tissues and this and that. And I say, but what does that say about society though? That it's like going through a fast food restaurant. Now there's a pill for it. There's a pill for everything. What does that say about us? And that's my concern. You know what I mean? For the
Well,
world.
we've just lost the values of meaningful things.
Right. Yeah.
And I mean, just the abortion itself shows that we have lost the value of life.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
yeah.
we don't appreciate life for where it's at.
Right.
And, as soon as there's a conception, that's life.
Right.
And the life doesn't happen when there's a child born.
Right.
And it
right.
doesn't happen at 2 years old. It doesn't happen at 50. It happens at conception when you
Right.
have that burst.
Right.
But we don't value that. We don't value each other.
Right. Right.
And we've reached that point to where we can't agree to disagree peacefully.
Right.
There's so much hate and
Yeah.
animosity.
Right.
And it's like, man, let it go.
Right.
And I mean, yes, I would love for every single living person to see the beauty that I have seen and
Right.
experienced, but
Right.
I know that that's not going to happen.
Right. I was thinking about that on the way here. I think some of the stuff I don't know, Sarah, people, unfortunately, I don't know. I know I sound so negative when I say unfortunately, like I'm attacking people, but the reality is, I mean, I think some of this stuff people do have to just come to it on their own. You give them the
Right.
information and you're not going to force them. Like they've got to just figure it out. But I just had a couple more questions before we get into your
Yeah,
work at the clinic.
you're fine.
But so there was two more questions I had that kind of two things that really surprised me again in the film. And again, people, I'll remind them again, if you go on YouTube, She Was Stronger. It's by the organization And Then There Were None. I highly recommend people go see that, and they can see Sarah in the movie, and they can learn more about her. So Sarah, there were two things I want to ask you about. The first one, something that surprised me, and I hate to stereotype, but you are from Alabama, and you talked about having friends as young as 14. And you said getting an abortion as if it was nothing.
Mhm.
Sarah, you got to understand, for somebody up here in Massachusetts where, I mean, you told me that happened up here. I think nothing of it. But to hear in the 70s in Alabama that this was kind of going on, even for someone like myself that studies this type of topic, that was very surprising to me to hear that. I think a lot of people up where I live would think that Alabama maybe in the 70s wouldn't have such a problem like that. And I'm not saying, I mean, I don't know to what degree. I'm not saying that you were claiming it was happening everywhere or anything like that. But that was a bit surprising that you witnessed that in any capacity down in Alabama. Can you give us some insight? Because I am stereotyping. That threw me off guard. I wouldn't really have expected
Well,
that,
Okay. I'm not as old as what you think. It was
Okay.
actually the 80s.
Okay. Did you say the 70s in the film?
Well, I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
I'd have to actually go back.
I
but,
thought you said this. The only reason I said the 70s was because I thought that's what you said in the movie.
Yeah, that's
So
okay. That's okay. That's okay.
Okay.
No, and I guess I'm trying to think of when I was 14, it may have been like 1982.
Okay.
So it's
Okay.
still close.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
because I'm almost 56.
Okay. Okay.
I don't look it though.
Right.
I don't
No,
look
it's
at
okay.
day over 72.
I'm 46, so we're 10 years
Okay.
apart. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And you know, well, one of the things it wasn't openly talked about. It was a very hush hush.
Okay.
You know, Mary Smith just went and had an abortion.
Right, okay.
You know, so it was like you don't talk about it. It was
kept
very
at bay.
quiet.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so it was extremely taboo. And
Okay.
I mean, I remember talking to my mom just one day, and she told me when I was 15, she said, if you get pregnant, I'm taking you to the abortion clinic.
Okay.
And I was like, not if I don't want that. You're not going to do that.
Right. Right.
But, you know, when I got a little bit older, I realized I'm the youngest of 5. She was tired. She didn't want to be raising any more kids.
Right. Right.
You know, and that was kind of my mentality in my
Right.
20s.
Okay.
But now that I'm older, I'm like, you know what? I would have had a different approach to it, of course. But,
Right.
you know, can't go back and change where
Right.
her logic was
Right.
coming from
Of
or
course,
anything.
of
But
course.
I mean, I would say a lot of my friends did have abortions.
Right.
And I'll never, ever name names and point
Yeah, of
fingers.
course not. Of course. Yeah.
You know, because I had one too. And I mean,
Right.
heck, we, you know,
It
drove
was
each
there,
other to the
though.
clinics.
Yeah. Yeah. It was
Yeah.
there. So that brings to the second point was that the other thing that was amazing, and I'm sure you've been asked about this, but I think it also is a reflection. Like I've seen this many, many times. You said at one point, again, I don't want to misquote or anything or mix. There were two other women. I hope I'm not mixing up stories here.
It's okay.
You said that even though you knew you were going to get an abortion, like you didn't want to smoke or drink.
That was me. Yeah.
That was,
dude,
I mean,
let me tell you,
man.
you're getting deep into my brain with that.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, because it's so funny. I'm driving down the road. I had my best friend in the car and I did a U-turn.
Yeah.
And she said, where are you going? I said, I just need to go make this stop real quick. And we pulled into the clinic and she's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And I was like, nothing, just shut up and come, you know. So I went in there and I said, hey, I need to get a pregnancy test. And she's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, just shut up.
Right.
And I went in the room and as she was doing the test, she showed us, you know, if it gets cloudy, it means it's positive.
Right.
And we looked and it was cloudy. And even before the lab girl said it's positive, I looked and I said, oh, looks like the rabbit died.
Right.
And then she looked over at me, the lab girl, and she goes, yeah, it's positive. You're pregnant. And I said, okay, who do I need to talk to about making an appointment for an abortion? And my friend is like, no, what are you doing? What are you doing? I was like, I can't have a kid.
Right.
And so then I had to go home and tell my boyfriend.
Yeah.
And he was a good old Roman Catholic from New Jersey.
Right. Okay. Oh, really? Okay.
He was in the Navy down in Mobile. And,
okay.
you know, and when I told him, he proposed, and all I was thinking is, no, we're going to end up divorced.
Right.
I'm going to be a single mom, you know, probably with 3 kids. I'm not going to be doing that. That's not where my future is.
Right.
And so, yeah, but it's so weird because I don't know why I did it.
Right.
But I just knew for the time that I had that baby in my womb, I was going to take care of it, even though I knew I was having an abortion.
Right. Sarah, if you don't mind, I mean, I have a theory on all this. I'm very sympathetic, believe it or not, to like the way you were thinking and the way other people might approach that same thing, because I really believe, I've always had this idea that once something becomes part of the culture, once it's like you said, accepted as normal, you're not going to put that much thought into it. So it actually, if people around you knew people that had an abortion, it's in your mind, it's no longer a big deal, then you're going to jump around like that. You're going to be like, oh, I've got to take care of it, but tomorrow I'm going to abort it. It actually, it makes sense if you see the way people rationalize it when you debate them. So I don't actually, believe it or not, I know I said it kind of threw me off guard. It was amazing, but I also kind of get it too, because I've seen that. It's like, you know, we had the president of Massachusetts Citizens for Life on, and her and I talked about the fact that if a woman is murdered and she's pregnant, it's counted as a double murder.
Double homicide.
But if that same woman doesn't want that baby, it's not a life anymore. And we've just had this identity crisis where I think we as a culture just confused on like where we stand on this. I think even pro-life people get confused sometimes. And I remember one time I saw Ron Paul on The View, and he made some comment. I know I'm gonna mess it up, but it was like incredible. They said something about Ron Paul. He kind of turned it around on the host. Like he said, you're for abortion. Okay, so you're okay with abortion in the 8th month or something like that. And one of the hosts said, no, I'm not. That's disgusting. I forget the exact words, but he's like, well, why is it disgusting? You just said it wasn't a life. Like, which is it? I mean, like the other point I brought up on that interview was people will say, okay, they'll make up a number. At 12 weeks, it becomes a baby. Okay, well, here's the problem. If I can pinpoint that at this moment on this day, it's a baby. Okay, let's go along with that. So at midnight on this hour, now it's a baby. What about 2 minutes before that? At 11:59, is it not a baby? But at midnight, it becomes a baby? Like, where do you draw that line? It's and then, so I do get that kind of identity. As much as it surprises me, I also kind of get it. I think a lot of people do think that way, the way you did, So that all happened, and you cover that in the film, and it kind of leads in to like, you eventually worked at a clinic. Sarah, my first question, I'm dying to ask you this before we even talk about what you did there. How on earth were you able to film that part? How did they let you back into the clinic? Because
that was my abortion clinic. That's where the first procedure rooms where I had my abortion, and where we filmed was the first abortion where I assisted.
And they had no problem with you going back in there.
Well, it's no longer an abortion clinic.
Okay.
Back in, I think, Dan, I think like in 2017, that closed.
Okay.
And then there is a lady that bought it to use it almost like a, not really training facility, but like a pro-life, not a museum, but just kind of showing.
I understand. Okay, that's a good idea.
And then they actually redid part of it, and like this one side of it, Dan, it was really cool.
Okay.
They turned it into like a memory wall.
Okay.
So the women that had abortions could put little plaques up there in honor of their baby, or put little baby boots and stuff. And there was an area to pray, and it ended up being a very beautiful place. But walking in there was like, dude, that was some tough stuff, man.
I was under the impression that they were still operational. And I'm like, they could, if it was, I was thinking like, there's no way they agreed to this and let her come in and like trash talk the place. I thought that was amazing. So,
but like when you see it and there's a sign up there that says procedure, and I touch it. It was just, I had to touch it because it just didn't seem real, because I never thought I'd ever be back in there.
Right.
And that procedure room placard on the wall had been up there since the 70s.
Right. Wow.
And it was like, even the same carpet was in the recovery room with blood stains and everything. So there was a lot of things that were the same, and a lot had changed, but it was just crazy.
So, Sarah, now let's get into like when you were at the clinic. As you know, Sarah, again, there are people out there who are very resistant to certain information that comes out of these clinics. Often people like yourself, there's a lot of people out there that will say you're embellishing, you're making stuff up, and I, of course, I don't think that. I mean, I know what's going on out there, but there are just a lot of people that don't want to hear it, they don't want to believe it or whatever. I want to remind the audience again, you worked in a clinic. So the first thing I want to ask you about, and I've been, again, I've often been accused of making this up. Tell us first, there are a lot of people in the pro-life movement that believe that there's a side of this industry that is coercing or encouraging these women to get abortions. When they come in, the goal is to get that, because we talk about choice, we talk about having all the different information, but there are a lot of people like yourself that are saying, no, that's not, we're trying to push the abortion. That's what we want to happen. Anything you want to say about that? Anything that, like, how you guys were taught to speak with these girls as they came in? Like, how could you address people that would say, no, that's not what's going on. They're doing good things. They're helping. This is healthcare. Anything you have to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, you cover it or code it as women's health care. But the main objective is the abortion is where the money's at.
Right.
You know, I mean, you can come in and have a pap smear on a Wednesday afternoon, but that's not where the money is.
Right.
Our money is for the abortions.
Right.
And I mean, I worked at the clinic back in the early 90s.
Okay.
So I don't remember the prices of anything.
Okay.
I don't remember how much my own abortion was.
Okay.
But I had to borrow that money from a family member and pay them back. But,
Okay.
you know, it's like one of the things is that, you know, one of the things we always did is to let the women know they're making the right choice.
Right.
They're making the right decision, whatever, you know, that feeling was why they called to begin with. And yes, you're right. Yes, you were in a bad situation.
Right.
And so getting rid of the baby, well, we never called it a baby.
Right, of course.
You know,
right.
getting rid of the tissue is the best thing to do. And,
Right.
you know, you're not going to be pregnant anymore and
Right.
to move on. And, you know, it was like, luckily, I don't know if that's really accurate or not, but I worked in the back.
Okay.
So I never saw people up front, like when they first came in and
Right.
checked in and paid and stuff. I
Right.
didn't see that.
Okay.
I saw them at the, there's like a sub waiting room.
Okay.
There's a waiting room, then sub waiting room.
Yeah.
So I saw them from the sub waiting room to the procedure room.
Okay.
And, you know, very few times there would be hesitant at that point. And then
Right.
that's when I would just say, you know, why are you leaving now?
Right.
You know, I mean, you're
Yeah.
still going to be pregnant. You're still going to have this
Right.
issue. So
Right.
then they would go ahead and have the abortion and move over to recovery and leave with guilt or cry in recovery or something. And, you know,
Right.
that's when I just shun them. They start crying and I'm like, I don't want to hear it. I just
Right.
walked off.
Right. And Sarah, you also too, I mean, you said, I mean, this is probably the heaviest question I will ask you about in this whole interview. You know, you talked about what one of your jobs was there, piecing together the pieces
Yeah.
of the fetus to make sure you got
Yeah.
all the parts out. I mean, you know, I don't, if you don't want to get too deep into it, I understand.
No.
But yeah, I just want people to understand again, Sarah, because again, you're talking right now. There are people in this audience that just think it's no big deal. It's nothing.
Yeah.
It's not a life.
And
You
I was
saw that
one
yeah.
of them. Yeah, I
you-
was one of them.
Right.
My job was the procedure room nurse
Okay.
to assist the doctor.
Yeah.
I got so good at that.
Yeah.
I got to work in POC, products of conception, is an honor.
Okay.
That means you know your stuff and you're good at what you do.
Right. Okay.
And so when they said we're going to train you in this, I was like, man, I'm doing good.
Right,
You know,
right.
I'm going to be a great nurse,
Right.
man. This is good.
Right.
And so, you know, you go in there because when I'm the procedure room nurse, I'm not seeing the details
Right.
of the abortion is
Right.
what you do in POC.
Right.
It went into a cup. I didn't really see it.
Right.
I'd put the pad on the woman, walk her to recovery. But in
Right.
POC, you're taking everything out because ours would be like in this little mesh
Yeah.
netting inside of a plastic container. Then you put it into like
Right.
almost like a clear pie dish.
Right. Right.
And separate all of the pieces and everything and make
Right.
sure everything's there before
Right.
the woman's released to
Right.
go home out of recovery.
Right. Right.
You know, and I mean, and I remember my brothers are twins.
Okay.
And I remember one day there was twins.
Okay.
And that hit me hard
Yeah.
because I mean, there's two skulls,
Yeah.
there's two spines,
Right.
there's, you know, 4 arms, 4 legs,
Right.
and these tiny little bitty fingers.
And you thought of your brothers.
I mean,
yeah.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I remember really being physically and mentally upset about
Right,
this. I
right.
remember having to look away
Right.
and just like gain my composure and
Right.
focus again because in my mind I'm in the medical profession.
Right.
I'm helping women, I'm doing the best I can, and I want to make sure that there's no tissue left inside her
Right. Right.
because they're not called babies, it's called tissue.
Right. Right. Right.
You know, you have to separate that, and that was hard.
Right.
That was really hard
So what?
seeing the twins.
Right. So what was? I know you again. I know a lot of this is covered in the film, but
You're fine.
tell for the audience what was something started to churn where you started questioning it. I assume, like, was there a particular moment or was it a number of moments where you started saying, I don't know about this anymore? Or was it
Well-
after you left the clinic? Like, how did that all come to where you are now? Like, what was that path to say, I'm not so sure about this anymore?
Yeah. Well, the reason when I left the clinic, I was still very much pro-choice.
Okay.
I was still a radical. I was still, you know, very into that life.
Right.
And it all started because we had protesters out there.
Right.
And we would have these sometimes they would be, holding up signs, these
Right.
horrible signs.
Right.
And this one day my administrator had enough.
Yeah.
She was just like, I'm calling the police, I'm
Right.
done. But when the police showed up, she refused to sign the arrest papers.
Right.
So me being the dedicated one, I said,
Yeah.
I'll sign them.
Of course. Yeah.
Well, I sign them, and I don't know what I'm getting myself into.
Right.
I didn't realize that I'm now going to have to go to court
Mhm.
and stand before a judge and all of them. And,
Yeah.
because apparently they broke like the protesting laws. They got off the sidewalk.
Right. Right. The boundaries.
And they're
yeah.
supposed to stay on the sidewalk and
Right.
not walk on the grass.
Okay. Okay.
And so that means the media was there, news, all of these journalists. And I'm like this 22, 23-year-old kid, not knowing what in the hell I've just gotten into.
Right. Right.
I'm like, I don't know about this. The administrator didn't show up.
Okay.
I had no attorney.
Yeah.
It was just me
Right.
and I had a priest arrested,
Right.
along with another lady that was a very prayerful warrior.
Okay.
And then I had all the pro-life people all
Okay.
looking at me as if I'm this evil person.
Right. Right.
We go to court. The judge is like, okay, this is stupid, waste of time,
Right.
case dismissed.
Okay.
And I come out of the courtroom and there's cameras up there. And then I'm just like,
it got media coverage, huh? Wow.
yeah.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
I'm just like going, whatever, just
Right.
And so the media coverage the next few weeks was also coming to the clinic and hanging
Okay.
out in the parking lot.
Okay.
And the administrator did not like that at all.
Okay.
Because you don't want the
Right.
news
Oh, of
and
course.
police
Yeah.
at the abortion clinic.
Right,
You want to be on
right.
the DL with everything.
Right.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
And I started being shunned
Okay.
at work.
Okay.
And it was this very close, tight-knit family
Right.
and everything. And I
Right.
was getting shunned, and I just said, to hell with it. If I'm
Right.
going to be shunned, whatever, I'm done. I
You
quit.
would have thought they would have stood by you. That alone is
Would have
surprising to
thought
me.
it. Yeah.
Wow.
But they
huh.
didn't.
Yeah.
And I was there for 3.5 years. And and I was good. I
Right.
was the best procedure room nurse they had. I worked in POC, whatever you needed, I did it.
Right.
And I would, so, but it was several years later. One of the really sad things, Dan, I was friends with this lady that had 2 teenage kids.
Okay.
And I'm in my 20s. So it's like I'm friends with her. She's a little bit older,
Yeah.
but her daughter was 14 or 15 at the time, found out she's pregnant. I drove her to the clinic saying I'm her aunt.
Okay.
But come to find out she's like 24 weeks, so
Right.
they can't do the abortion,
Okay.
which means we now have to take her home and go tell her mama.
Right.
And her mom was like, well, how do you know? We had an ultrasound done. Well, where? What's,
Right.
So then we had to tell her, well, I took her to the abortion clinic to
Yeah.
have the abortion, and that causes huge, you were going to kill my grandchild? You weren't
Right.
going to tell me? So, of course,
Yeah. that was an
put a
issue.
damper on our friendship.
Yeah.
And I got invited to the baby shower, and that was
Yeah.
so weird. I was just like,
I would
"Oh."
imagine. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
I was like,
wow.
I think I'll just, good luck, y'all. I'll be out of your life. But yeah, but it was like several years passed, and a friend of a friend invited me to go to church to study the 7 deadly sins.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, I'll go because I'll make sure I'm doing them all right.
Right.
And that just kind of opened up a new door for me
Right.
where I was able to grow in a different way.
Right. Sarah, another thing too I want to talk about is like, where you were, I think it's amazing that we're even talking right now, because
Yeah.
there was a time in your life where someone like me, you probably, you would have thought was the enemy and would want nothing to do with, like not even want to have the conversation.
Oh,
And-
yeah.
and-
Oh, yeah.
And like another thing I want people to get out of this whole thing is that, like, Sarah, again, I can't say it enough. I've had, especially as a guy, like, you're just not supposed to have an opinion on this.
Right.
Your name is mud if you even open your mouth. And, what's funny is I know growing up, I'm also Catholic, and like, your boyfriend from New Jersey, and, it's a prevalent religion up in this area. It's almost like cultural. Like all the kids in my elementary school also went to church. It's what people are up here. And one thing I try to tell people all the time, I understand, like when you talked about people holding the horrible signs, I get that dark side of religion and the judgment. I understand all of that. But there's this other side of it too, where like, I'll be honest with you, Sarah. I mean, this idea that we were all being taught that women are property, they're supposed to stay home and be pregnant. Nobody was teaching us that. Like, we were not being taught to degrade women. That those thoughts never even crossed my mind. And what started happening was people who maybe had no problem with me other than the fact that I was against abortion. I mean, that was the only issue they had with me. They would just start lecturing me and drilling it in my brain. Oh, the way you think is damaging to women. And it got to the point where I started believing it. I mean, I've talked on this show. I've had some dark days where I kind of sat there and I said, geez, like maybe I am damaging these women. Maybe I should shut my mouth. You know what I mean? And I just think that, like, a lot of this, again, it's conditioning. You're against abortion. You hate women. And is there anything you can say about the fact, again, I know there is that nasty side of the pro-life movement. I know that there are some people that are just, for whatever reason, they're conditioned the way a pro-choice person would. But can you speak to the fact that, in other words, there are people, can you tell people, or people that are maybe resistant to the ideas of someone like me, we're not all bad people. There are people that genuinely just love they just love babies, and they're not trying to take your rights or enforce anything on you. It's just we're very, very concerned about what we're seeing in this world, and that's it. There's no agenda here. Is that something? I guess I'm asking you to speak to the person who might be resistant to what I'm saying, and even you now as a pro-life person. Could you speak to those people? Is there anything you could say to them about where they might be at,
Yeah, well, one of the things, I considered myself a very radical feminist, pro-choice individual.
Okay.
I still consider myself a feminist.
Okay.
I believe women should have equal pay.
Right.
For the same job. Right. I feel like, women can be in the military. There's nothing a woman can't do that a man can't do.
Right.
As far as jobs, careers, things like that, whatever. I feel like, too, women were gifted with a womb to create life.
Right.
Women can give birth and raise babies and have a career.
Right.
You can have a baby and finish college.
Right.
Women have more power than what they think. I feel like that they cut themselves short. I cut myself short by telling myself that I couldn't get pregnant because I would never do A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
Right.
Well, hell, Dan, I still didn't do half of the alphabet that I wanted to do. Right. And I so it's like, we have to place the value of the life that's there and just see the love.
Right.
I mean, we have to, first of all, love each other, even through the differences of stuff.
Right.
There's just, hate's got to stop somewhere, man. It's just, there's just no room for it.
Right. And Sarah, again, that term pro-choice, like I said, everything you just described is, again, why I think them using that term pro-choice is so genius. Because by doing that and churning it on the pro-life person who's not pro-choice just signed up for, all those other things that you said, like a woman can have a job, they can do what they want with their life. You have, by using such a vague term as pro-choice, it's implying that I'm trying to enforce my will on all the other things a girl wants to do in life. And that's not what I'm doing. This is about abortion and nothing else. Right. And the fact that, at the core of my interest in this, this topic was just like, even as a young kid, I used to look around and I'm like, again, never mind whether it's a life or not a life or whatever. This does not look like it's really helping anybody. These people do not look like, I'm meeting all these girls that just seem really, they're not comfortable with what they did. And I'm trying to maybe warn other girls, like, you got to think this through. You got to, and by telling me, hey, you have no say in this, to me, ultimately, it hurts other girls who maybe wanted to have a baby, but they were just so, I mean, I know a lot of people, their family members encouraged them to get the baby, and they really wanted to have it. And which brings me to another thing too, Sarah, is that I think it's unbelievable. To me, that again, growing up, people wouldn't know this, but in the Catholic religion up here, we were taught like having a baby is special. I know the woman carries the baby, but that union with the father and the mother, it's a very special thing. And the first thing they do is, listen, you don't have a uterus. Shut up, get lost. And it's really, really sad because we we're in a world where people are getting divorced, having babies out of wedlock. And what it does is, I've noticed guys that want to be a good father and want to take care of a baby, they're getting locked out too. They're being told you can't have an opinion on this. It's having this bad effect.
Yeah, I mean, for 50 years, Dan, we told men it's my body, my choice.
Right,
you ain't got no say with what I'm going to be doing, and I don't care what you say.
Right.
I told my own boyfriend that.
Right.
I don't care.
Right.
My poor boyfriend sat in the freaking waiting room at the abortion clinic with me, and even when they called my name, he's like, "Please don't do this. Please don't do this." I'm like, whatever. That is okay. First of all, it's just disrespectful, not to value somebody else's input with it, especially the father.
Yeah.
The fathers, the guys, the men, we've got to, I can't say we, I'm not a man, I'm a woman.
Right.
The men have to stand up and say, look, this has to end. This is my child too. I want to be a father. I want to step up and do the right thing. Even if I'm not in a relationship with the mother, even if we dissolve what we had, I still am going to be a father and a parent to my son or daughter.
Right.
And we have to get everybody in agreement with that. And the men have to stand up. The men have a voice and it has to be heard.
Right.
And I so appreciate y'all doing this because having a man's perspective of it is very, very important.
And Sarah, just so you know, and I agree with everything you're saying. And this, I don't want this to come out the wrong way. I just want, you are right 100%. But at the same time, I want people in other parts of the country, because we've had guests at this point from other countries, other parts of the USA. So we're building a reach right now. And one thing I want people to understand, I hate pulling this card like, oh, Massachusetts is, a liberal state. But I do lean on that sometimes. I do want people to understand, in a state like this up here where we are, I mean, I encourage men to be brave, and I've talked about this with other guests, but I do want people to understand it is a very, very scary thing, especially in an area like if you live in California or Massachusetts or say maybe even New York or something like that. Speaking up against abortion, it can be a very, very scary thing. One of the things I've told people, I mean, I've had girls go crazy on me, like just angry, spitting venom. They tell their friends don't go. I mean, put it this way. If you are a guy in certain areas or certain segments of the population, it can be a very, very, very lonely world to speak out against abortion. Now, I'm doing okay right now. As you see, I have a show. I've weeded out kind of the friends that stand by me. I'm doing okay. But there were a lot of very dark years where I'm telling you, Sarah, there were moments. I had almost a year back around, I can't remember what year it was. I want to say around maybe 2012, maybe. I had a full probably 10 months, where I was questioning if I should even speak out about this anymore. I mean, I had somebody made a flyer about me. Yeah. And said what, and the thing is that it was always, again, it was never about the abortion. It was this thing putting me on the spot. Like, I couldn't believe, so I've never, I know how I was raised. I know like what was expected of me. And suddenly they're drilling in people's head just because I'm against abortion or speaking out against it. The borderline implying that I'm like a Nazi or that I think rape is funny. I mean, that's what these people do. So I'm just saying it's men. It's almost like I warn men, like, look, you need to be part of this, but you also need to be prepared. I'm not saying don't get involved.
Right.
I'm not saying don't be brave.
Yourself.
I'm not right. I guess what I'm trying to say is this. I know I'm long-winded here. I'm not trying to discourage men from getting involved. I want them to, but I'm encouraging them, and I'm trying to prepare them at the same time, because there's nothing glamorous about this. Nothing in this area.
One of the things for me that I am a Christian.
Okay.
And so I am a conservative Christian. So I have to cover myself in prayer.
Right. Okay.
And put on the armor of God.
Right.
And I feel like that's what the men that you're referring to, I feel like they need to do that as well.
Of course.
And so that way, it's almost like sticks and stones.
Right.
Break my,
Right.
But it's like, there's always going to be somebody there's always going to be haters. Like what's
Yeah.
that Taylor Swift song that
Right.
you know what I
Yeah, I
can't
know.
think of.
Yeah. The player's gonna
but it's
hate. Yeah.
yeah, you know, I mean, you're always going to have that.
Yeah.
But and I do feel like the more men stand up and speak, it makes it a universal thing, a little bit stronger, and builds that fence. Like he's doing it and he's doing it. So that's how I feel. So maybe I'm going to speak up about it too.
Right. And Sarah, I'll say on the flip side of that, just so you know, having women on this show, it goes both ways. This is a huge tool for me because I'm kind of just trying to play middle person between you and the audience right now. And I was like, listen, if you don't want to hear what I have to say, hear what she has to say. She used to be in a clinic, and all that. Sarah, just a few more things I want to ask you about. Just kind of like, I don't know, like philosophical type stuff. This always comes up in the abortion topic, and I just wanted your opinion on a couple of these things.
Okay.
People laugh at this, but I check in on a lot of the daytime talk shows, and because I like to, in pop music, like you brought up Taylor Swift, I am a strong believer that you have to know what's going on because I think a lot of parents don't understand what's being taught to their kids. And if you have some knowledge of what's going on in the entertainment world and whatnot, you can kind of like follow. So I have a job, the hours I work, it's a situation where sometimes I'm home, like say, I can catch like the end of The View, for example. So I'm always quoting Whoopi Goldberg on what she says on abortion. And she keeps saying something over and over again. She continuously, the pillar of her argument is, if you don't want an abortion, don't get one. She says it over and over and over again. Here's my counter to that. I always say, Whoopi, that's easier said than done. You say, it's my body, my uterus, stay out of it, my business. Sarah, I live in a state, and again, we had this conversation on past episodes. In this state, my tax dollars, me and Brian are paying for people's abortions, whether we like it or not. This is a pro-abortion state. They use taxpayer dollars to pay for abortion. So I say to Whoopi Goldberg, Whoopi, you're saying you don't want my opinion. You want me to stay out of your life, but you're going to use my money? So
you want my taxes.
Right. It's easy.
You don't want my opinion, but you want my taxes.
Right. So the point being is that you're saying stay out of my business. You're making it impossible for me to stay out of your business. You're using my money. You're like, and so I wanted your thoughts on that because I think Whoopi completely leaves that side of the argument out. That is, in one way or another, a lot of us are being forced to participate in this. And we're not being given that choice that she wants to have. So do you have anything, like when you see this, even if it's not about Whoopi Goldberg, what do you think? Like, because I mean, it's Hollywood and the entertainment industry. They're putting a lot of this. I mean, they're teaching kids very young that abortion's okay. Like you said, it's like nothing. It's whatever. Who cares? Get pregnant, have an abortion. Do you have anything to say about that? About like Whoopi Goldberg, a Hollywood, a taxpayer, anything that I just said there? Do you have any opinions on any of that?
Well, I feel like Hollywood is what is actually running America.
Yeah, I would agree.
You know, I mean, everything is sexualized.
Yeah.
And I mean, they're grooming little boys and girls.
Yeah.
In music videos and in TV and in movies and stuff, and sexualizing them and putting them out there. And, you know, and then they get all confused and they're doing stuff and being raped by these grown ass men and women and being put in situations and stuff, and to where there's no value to anything. There's no value to humanity. There's no value to sex. There's no value of the life that's in the womb that's been created. And I mean, it's just, we live in such a dark world.
Yeah, we do. It's
and
depressing.
It is just truly so sad. And so the environment that y'all are in, where it's like my tax dollars are still paying for the abortions, even though I'm begging you not to have the abortion and I'm fighting with my government. I'm voting against all of this, but they're still overpowering me. I mean, it's just a sad, sad situation to be in.
And Sarah, I've seen, like, just to give you an example where I connect it with abortion. Sarah, I've seen 3-year-old girls dance like doing like stripper pole dancing. 3. I've seen that. And I connect that with the abortion because I think it's all connected. This devaluing of, like you said, like morals. And it's that. But Sarah, the funny thing is that I think even Christians, even pro-life people, I really believe, Sarah, and you might disagree with me, I think they were way too slow to make those connections. I think it's really only been in the last 3 or 4 years. I was saying this decades ago. I think it's very, very recently that they finally started putting all those pieces together. And this should have been done 20 years ago, in my opinion. But that
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. 20 years ago, I was just now starting on like my Christian walk.
Right.
And so and I just became pro-life like 10 years ago.
Right.
However, it hasn't been very long.
Right, okay,
So it's like I'm still new and learning a lot of things. And so my eyes are opening, my heart is opening to a lot of the darkness and stuff. And it's like, and I just feel like we just have to get on our knees and just pray to God for protection.
Right.
And protection over our families.
Right.
And, to where we can educate other people and just go, look, this is wrong. Right. These 3-year-olds shouldn't be dressing this way. These 3-year-olds shouldn't be dancing this way.
Right.
And, why are even they making sexy clothes for little kids?
Right.
So let's just even go to the fashion designers. Let's even go back even further and go, look.
Right. And
let these babies be babies. They don't need to be dressing like this.
And Sarah, another thing I noticed too, like, not everyone's Catholic like me. I get that. But I noticed that a lot of people, even when you talk to an atheist, they've got some sense of the universe. Like they talk about karma and this and that. And I'm like, well, okay, but then you're implying there is an order. There is, they talk about reincarnation. It's like, okay, then you are, even though I might not believe in reincarnation, there's some order of living after you or paying for what you did in this life. So I say to those people, like, look, even if you don't believe in God or the Christian God, you must have some sense of like the vibe you're putting into the universe. And what the waves and what it's doing and how it comes back to you. And one day your kid might be acting that way and then you don't know. It's like I talk about with Sarah, I know so many guys right now that are losing their minds over the trouble their daughters are getting into. And I'm like, not that I'm laughing, but I'm kind of sitting there going, hey man, 15 years ago, you thought this stuff was funny. When it was some other drunk girl at a party, you didn't care about that girl's father. You didn't care. And now that it's your daughter, it's a big issue. You got to think about this stuff. You know what I mean? You can't wait till it's at your doorstep to care about it, So, sorry, I am wrapping it up here. I had one other thing I really wanted your opinion on.
Yeah.
And again, I'm trying to give people, I want them to understand what's happening up here in this state. Right now, there is a trend taking place. And it's happening kind of town by town. But there are people here under the belief that our governor, Maura Healey, will eventually kind of make it a statewide thing. And what's happening is this. We have, clinics up here, buildings that are pro-life, that, pregnancy crisis centers, as they call them. So if you don't know where to go, you're nervous, they help you. They get diapers, food, maybe a place to stay, maybe help you find a job after the baby's born. They're trying to help. Now, their crime, of course, is that they're pro-life. Okay? So in the town of Somerville, which is, so where we live, we're on the South Shore, closer to Plymouth, where we are right now. But Somerville is way up more. It's like a suburb of Boston, okay? So, for example, in the town of Somerville, they banned pregnancy crisis centers.
Wow.
It's banned, Sarah. You can't have it. Now, even the pro-choice people out here are horrified. They're like, why? And I try to get the pro-choice people to understand this is what you're signing up for. Their crime is that they're pro-life. They don't want, it's getting to the point, Sarah, it's gone beyond choice. We're now in the phase of, you need to get an abortion. This is what
that's what I was going to say. I mean, it's no longer a choice. It's pro-abortion.
Right. So if you go into that town and want to open a facility that says, look, you don't have to have this abortion. You can come here and we will help you. You're not welcome there. It was like a city ordinance. They don't want it in this town anymore. Now, this is happening town by town by town. Now, I've heard there are a lot of that are under the belief that, our governor is really for this. And it eventually could get to a point. They could just make it like statewide. Maybe not overtly. Maybe it might be kind of under the table, sneaky way. But, we are, like I said, this is an abortion safe haven. So, Sarah, I wanted people to understand that are going to see this. And you're welcome to give your opinion as well. just the magnitude of what is happening here. We're in a state where if you have any type of assistance that is pro-life, even if you're not bothering the abortion clinic, you're not bothering pro-choice people, you're just building this place where if a person doesn't want one, they can come here instead. It's not welcome in this state.
That is so sad.
That's what we're dealing with here. And I want you to know it. I want people to know this. And do you have any opinion on that? Anything you could say to that? I know you may be hearing this for the first time, but what are your thoughts on that?
I am hearing it for the first time because I tell you, I'm the kind of person that I'm opposite of you. I don't watch TV. I actually just plugged in my TV the other night when my niece came over.
Right. Okay.
So
okay.
it's like, so I'm completely out of the realm. I'm in my own little bubble, you know?
Okay.
So to hear this, I mean, it's frightening and it's really sad because, you know, if it's spreading town to town, it's going to overpower the state and then it's going to go to the neighboring states and it's just going to be this thing to where it's like we're no longer taking care of our neighbors.
Right.
You know, all we want to do is just have this destruction and kill and hate each other.
Right. And
that's just not the whole point of everything.
Right. And Sarah, another quick things too, like about that, you know, Maura Healey, our governor, she in protest of when Texas had their anti-abortion laws that were coming out over this past year, she was just to protest, just to make a statement. She purchased. Well, I mean, she didn't do it. She used, like I said, she used somebody's money to do this. Bought abortion pills for certain colleges in the state, just to make a statement like, we're gonna make sure these girls can get their abortion pill. And again, Sarah, it's like we can debate all day long the implications of an abortion pill, but what if I'm against it? Why do I have to pay for it? I mean, she clearly used taxpayer money for that, and you know, that's what's going on up here. And I just, you know, people need to know that, and just again, it's getting back to that thing where, you know, with guys and speaking up, we do need to speak up. I'm with you 100%. Like, we need to speak up. We need to, but you do also have to know. You have to learn how to weave in and out of the environment, because it's
how to know who you're fighting and how to fight. Yeah,
it's a crazy situation up here, and you know, like you know, again, with the state, it's you have to. I mean, you almost have to up here to get a vote. If you say you're pro-life, it's just, I mean, people won't vote for you. I mean, that's how in they are on this. And there is, you know, Sarah, I want to end on a positive note. I will say this, and I want to end positively, is that the abortion movement right now, the tools that we have now, the internet, that people like yourself, these weapons were not there 20 years ago. I mean, I've been in this a long time. I will say, I mean, they just had a March for Life in San Francisco. I mean, 30,000 people showed up. That's in San Francisco, where you would think people wouldn't show up for something like that. Just to give people hope, there is definitely a huge pro-life movement that is effective and is getting people to think that was not there before. And it is definitely working. So I do want people to know that side of it too. It is working. Like, it is. And I think you coming on here, I mean, this is massive to have someone like yourself speak the way you do and to be where you've been. That this is, I mean, it is very impactful, because someone like yourself is very hard to argue with you. You know what I mean? Because of where you've been and what you've done. Like, you're squashing a lot of that stuff that I'm not like able to say. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, you know,
well, I just, something just came to me too. I feel like your governor has been hurt by abortion.
Maybe.
Whether she's had an abortion, her mom had an abortion, a sister, you know, a daughter, a cousin, an aunt, you know, somebody, she has been affected and hurt by abortion herself.
Right.
And I just pray that she and whoever, whatever it is, that they find healing with that. I had to go through healing for my own abortion.
Right.
Mentally, because physically my abortion screwed me up. Physically, I could never get pregnant again because there's damage in my uterus.
Right.
And so I was never able to get pregnant and have a baby. And that one time I was pregnant is the only, you know, I aborted it.
Yeah.
And I never had I was never given another chance.
Right.
And hurt people.
Yeah. I know. And you do feel that, you know, there is, like, again, so I choose my words carefully, because I don't want to accuse anyone of anything, but I do sense, like, when I debate people on this, you know, there is that anger. I hate stereotyping and putting people in a category like you said, but sorry, I've seen it so many times. There's this anger and this hurt, and it's like I feel like their angle, their view, they're coming at me from that hurt, and that's why they have this belief. And so I'll say this too. There's a lot of people. The other thing that's very discouraging, there are people in my life that I love very much, friends, family, whatever, who I care a lot about, who I mean no harm to. And I know, like, my views on this, they don't like it. And it
right.
I'm
the same way.
They're very angry at me. They're very angry at me.
Yep.
And you know, I wish them no harm. I have family members that absolutely hate Abby Johnson and what she stands for. Right. Yeah.
And I'm like, I have received so much from Abby. I have gone through so much mental healing and so much therapy to be able to speak freely about things, and I had to face my own mirror.
Right. Yeah. It's
with
easy.
My own abortion. And then, I assisted with over 5,000 abortions. And so I had to come to terms with all of that too. And I'm very grateful for where I'm at. It's like turning all the mess that I had into a positive message where it's like, I just want everybody to know that, no matter how the conception happened, it still has a value there.
Right.
And, like if a woman has been raped, then let's get her the medical care that she needs, the physical care that she needs, the mental care that she needs. Let's be there for her. Because you're always, we can always be there for the baby, give the baby diapers, give the baby wipes. It's the mom that needs the care and attention and the love. And then she can turn that love over into a baby and know that baby, even though it's from rape, doesn't mean that that's a rape baby or a demon baby. Right.
And Sarah, what opened my eyes to a lot of that was, again, the internet. There's a movement out there now, an entire movement of like swarms of people that were the result of a rape.
Yeah.
And they're sitting there saying, hold on, my mother was raped. What about, so you're saying I should be erased from existence? And that brings this whole other layer. And again, those tools were never there before. I mean, this is new stuff that we have that now. And I'm grateful for that because it has made this a lot easier. And Sarah, I want to say too, like, I can't say it enough. Like, what you're doing is a great thing. And I think, this is a tool. This like what you do, what Abby does. And I think that you to move forward the way you have, a lot of people never do. They just carry that with them the rest of their lives. And I want you to know, despite what we talked about in your past, this is magnificent what you're doing for me right now, and what they're coming on this show. This is like incredible. And again, if people, if they were kind of up here and saw what was going on, this is an abortion stronghold, and little battles like this, like having you on the show, this is humongous. So I really appreciate you coming on. It is making a difference, I believe.
I appreciate this opportunity. I mean, there's freedom and healing.
Right.
So, I mean, even if you've had an abortion, you can still heal from the pain and the trauma of it and move forward with your life.
Right.
And I just hope that people find that, because men get hurt by abortion too.
Yeah.
And there's help for men out there. There's help for the women out there.
Right.
And, just because you think one way doesn't mean you have to stay that way.
Right.
You can always change your views. You can always go, you know what? I thought this way for 20 years, but I really don't think that way anymore. And I'm going to look into something else.
Right. So I think you probably already answered this. I want to wrap this up, but I feel like I probably had you already answer this, and I don't know if this answer would be the same. But I did want you to just say, again, talk to those people. I know you just did, but to the person that is still listening to this and they're skeptical. Yeah. You've been there. You get it. Talk to those people for a minute for me. Like, just let them know, like, if maybe they're having second thoughts of, maybe they've never had an abortion, maybe they never worked in a clinic, maybe they're just starting to slowly, maybe today's discussion with you might have had an impact. Can you just say a few words to them? Like, you were deep into this. There is hope if maybe you aren't so sure anymore that this is a good thing. Could you talk to those people for me for a minute in that audience?
Well, one of the things that, I just want to say is that, you can always change your mindset.
Yeah.
You can always change where your heart is and the direction where you're going.
Yeah.
And just find that no matter why this mom ended up pregnant,
Yeah.
that we still need to protect her as the mother that she is and have the baby in her womb.
Right.
And we need to give her and the baby all the help and care that we can.
Right.
And we need to just value that. And, for the guys out there, just to look at things a little differently with just a little bit of sensitivity and a little bit of bravery, and just go, you know what? Maybe I'm scared to speak up, but I feel like this is what I need to. Just dig inside yourself and find the goodness that's in there.
Right.
And just go, this is what I have to do. I have to speak the truth. I really just need to do this.
Right.
And for the girls out there that are scared, I get it.
Yeah.
I so get it. And I lived with the regret of aborting the only pregnancy that I ever had.
Right.
And that's something I could never turn the clock around on.
Right.
But I just pray that, somebody's in that situation, they find a help.
Right.
They, like if there's a pregnant girl out there, if a guy's out there with his girlfriend pregnant, one of our ministries is called Loveline.
Okay.
And we do help pregnant girls. We help them get resources that they need. They can go to Loveline.com.
I was going to ask you that, so I don't mean to cut you off. Do that now. That was going to be my last question. Are there organizations you would suggest? Are you out there on social media if people want to look into what you're doing? I'll let you talk on that, where people can go that are interested in all this.
Yeah. So I'm with And Then There Were None.
Okay.
So our website is abortionworker.com.
Okay.
We also have prolove.com.
Okay.
And it's PROLOVE.
Okay.
And we have Loveline.
Okay.
And so Loveline is for when people have a need.
Okay.
And you're pregnant, you can't pay rent, something has happened, you've lost your job, or you find you're in an abusive relationship. We have case managers on the clock 24/7.
Right.
Contact them. They're going to help you and guide you on however you need.
Right.
And if there's somebody out there that's worked in an abortion clinic or currently working in an abortion clinic, we can get you help.
Okay.
Go to abortionworker.com.
Great.
And we're going to help you find a better life any way that we possibly can.
Okay. And Sarah, I want to add just to what you said is that my big thing in all this, again, I think pregnancy and making a baby, people get into these deep philosophical debates. When's it a baby? When it's not a baby? And I just say, look, just the act of making a baby, it's such a special thing. Like you said, conception, even right when that happens, it's this magical thing that having a baby, having a family. And I think we've lost that. We just don't, and people we need to bring that back somehow. It's just become such a thing that you just kind of shrug your shoulders, we're cavalier about it. I don't think that's good at all. And I would just add that I think we need to bring that back. So, Sarah, thank you so much. Do you have any final words? I mean, I think I covered everything I wanted to talk to you about, but is there anything we left out or you would want to say to the audience before we wrap it up?
No, I just really appreciate this opportunity.
Okay, cool. Great.
I just pray that everybody is just safe and sound, and that we can change some hearts. You can change your mind in 5 minutes about something, but it's when you change your heart is when permanent change happens.
Yeah. And Sarah, there's one thing I do want to say too. Just, I know the show is growing. We're getting this bigger audience, but we're still, we're operating out of this local area. I would even say, when you talked about people that maybe were hurt by this topic and maybe changed their mind or whatever, I will put out there too. These people that I've talked about that have been angry at me over the years or whatever, I hold no grudges with anybody. If at any point, anyone in the audience, I don't care who it is, I don't care what arguments, or maybe they were nasty to me and they felt bad about it, or maybe they felt I was nasty to them. I don't know. I don't have all the answers. I'm not, I'm not perfect. I'm open at any point. Anybody wants to talk to me, no matter what the past discussions or what they've done in their life, I'm open to it. I hold no grudges with anybody that is going through this. If they, in this area, if they want to get in touch with me or talk to me, friends, or if they never met me, I'm here too. it's like you said, it's about building those bridges, and we can't
Yeah.
have these. Everyone's banging heads on this topic. There's got to be some middle ground here, and that's the
has
only
to
way
be.
this is going to be solved.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah.
And just do it out of love. I
Yeah,
mean, we
yeah.
can disagree about
Right,
things all
right.
day long, but we don't have to hate each other.
Right.
Yeah.
I
mean, I'm sure there's people that may be listening to me, cussing me out or going,
Probably.
"Shit, but it's like, but I still want you to find the humanity in me as I'm going to find in you.
Right.
And just have some sort of love there for each other, compassion.
Yeah.
Because we're both humans and we hurt and we go through life,
Yeah. And I think there is, there's a lot of common ground there too. I think there's times where even people, I don't have a uterus, but that doesn't mean I think that we're all people. Like, we can all relate to pain. I know what it's like to be in trouble and be like, oh no, what did I just do? At least I can relate to that, and I think that, again, there's that common ground. But Brian, do you have anything before we wrap up? Anything you wanted to ask her, or are we good?
Oh, I'm good. I'm just against depopulation.
Good. Okay. Good. I do want to do an episode on all that too. Like, I am definitely getting to that, where Brian's going to actually be my guest. I've been telling him since the beginning of this, but we are going to do a Brian episode where I interview you, because you have a lot of interesting thoughts on that too. Where I have dark space, like blank spaces that me and him fill in a lot of gaps. Believe it. I do a lot of talking, but he's got a lot of knowledge over here next to me. But yeah, Sarah, I would say, if you can, we're gonna wrap it up here. If you can stay on there just so we can say bye to you and talk to you for a minute after we're done. But again, Sarah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
This was great today. And like I said, look up She Was Stronger on YouTube, and then there were none. And that's the organization. Sarah is in the film. Go see her in it. It's great. I mean, you're in the documentary, so I want people to see that, and they can see other people who've been through this. And Sarah, my final question: if we got in touch with you down the road a year from now or something, again, this is a newer show, would you be interested in coming back on and talking to us again?
Oh, dude, yeah. And hey, one thing I forgot to tell you too is that we have a movie coming out in the theaters, and I think in March, Unthinkable.
Okay.
So
yes, I heard about that. Yeah.
With prior abortion workers, doctors.
Okay.
I mean, it's a feature film, just like Unplanned was. It's going to be in the movie theaters around March.
Sarah, I know I keep saying I'm wrapping this up, but I got one more for you. And this is one more little glimmer of hope, okay?
Okay.
When Unplanned came out, Abby Johnson's movie, okay? So at the beginning, I took a friend of ours, good friend of mine, my friend Alexandria, she told me, I mean, I knew about the movie, but she approached me and said, hey, we got to go see this. They're playing it at the local movie theater. Now, Sarah, despite everything that I just told you, some way, somehow, against all odds, they showed that movie in that theater, which blew my mind. And I just kept saying, I'm like, I can't believe I'm seeing this movie in this theater. So there is some hope. Some way, somehow, that movie was shown in this area. And despite everything the description I gave, you would have thought that they blocked it, because there were some places. I know there was a movie theater chain in Canada that didn't want the movie shown, and they protested, and they eventually got it shown. But right here, in the middle of all this, that movie did break through out here, and people did see it. And this was like a mainstream theater. So Unplanned was shown here. And that gives me hope for the film you're talking about. I mean, maybe some of the theaters will carry it. We'll see what happens.
And I'll tell you this too. I have probably 50 Unplanned DVD movies.
Okay. Yeah.
So if you want any of them to pass them out to any of your viewers, let me know and I'll mail them to you.
Absolutely. If you want, so I can email you. We'll talk afterwards. I can get in touch with you, give you my address and all that. Yeah, I would definitely take some, without a doubt, if people want it. Like I said, we're involved in a lot of the local, scene around here with the band. So a lot of times at shows we'll have tables set up where we can even give them out for free and stuff like that.
Right
so,
on.
We can get them out to people without a doubt. So anyway, well, Sarah, if you can stay on, we'll talk to you in a minute. But that's it for today. So thank you again very much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Awesome.